I'm sure when it comes to people that collect computers and stuff like that, they all have one system that they own but they just don't like. Or maybe they have multiple systems that they own and just don't like. This is my TRS-80 Model 2. I picked this up 4 years ago from a guy who picked it out of a ditch with an expansion cabinet. Cost me about 70 bucks to ship. Had to tear it apart. Had to basically rebuild it. It runs. But my goodness. Okay, so you have the Model 1. You basically need the expansion interface to do a whole lot of anything with it. This has that built in. This has 64K of RAM. But this has an 8-inch hard drive as opposed to 5 1/4, which would have been available in the Model 1 and the Model 3. And I'll get to that later. But like I said, there's some systems that people own that they just don't like. It's kind of like Mac users and the Mac 2VX or the 2VI. They're Macs, but other than that, they're really just kind of crap. Anyways, so after a couple years of owning this, I managed to amass a couple of upgrades, some software, some hardware documentation. And now, you can't see the expansion cabinet, but it's hidden in another room. It has its 8-inch drive mounted, plus I have a 5 1/4-inch drive I've had to modify and fit in there. And that was a challenge on its own. I got a pile of software. Right, so one of the reasons I don't like this machine is that a lot of the software for it is crap. You have like Scriptsit, VisiCalc, WordStar. It's all Office software, but that's because this is an Office machine. There's really not a whole lot of fun software to use for it. Plus, you don't have a lot of the luxury of TRS-DOS. It does have 3 operating systems available for it, though. So, of course, right off the bat, you have TRS-DOS on an 8-inch disc. And yeah, so yeah, TRS-DOS. DOS Plus was ported to it, and that was apparently the improved version of TRS-DOS. And I also have here CP/M. And buried even further in here on these IBM diskettes, I have the installation for Microsoft Xenix. Now, all 3 operating systems support a hard drive for one reason or another. Almost every Tandy system made supported or was able to support a hard drive. There we go. And the Model 2 is no exception. Now, one thing that Tandy collectors do know is that if you want one of the external hard drives for the Model 2, or for any Tandy machine, you're going to be paying a lot of money. Not for the interface or the add-ons or anything like that. Just the cabinet itself costs between $150 to $250. And it's really just a power supply and a disk drive, and unless it's the original 8 meg drive, there's not a whole lot else that's going on inside. So I decided to cut a corner, and in my machine, I've already taken the screws out, I've built a hard drive into the unit because there was the space. And what I've done is I've taken a metal plate, it's bolted up against the card cage, and I have a plastic shim that sits underneath and just sits, lets everything rest on it. And this shields the drive's underside from the power supply. There's a second power supply that runs to the power switch, so both turn on at the same time, and this just takes additional stress off the original power supply, which I haven't recapped lately. I'm waiting for it to explode, or otherwise give off some magic smoke. And I can mount a Seagate hard drive like the ST225 in here, no problem. Another upgrade I got is that over time I was able to expand the card cage. And I'm just trying to remember which ones these were. CPU, disk controller, RAM, and there's like 64K in there still, and video. And then I managed to get access to several partial or non-working TRS-80 Model 16s and Model 6000s. So I got a couple of neat add-ons. The first one is the Motorola 68000 CPU. So this is for Xenix. And I have the 512K RAM card for it. And there's this ribbon cable here which links the two together. There's another one down here. I have the Type 4 hard disk interface. So this is the best of the bunch they had. Again, it was supported by Xenix and just uses regular MFM to connect up to the hard drive. And at the very end here, I have a 3-port serial card, which again, supported by Xenix. So, all these nice add-ons, all this cool hardware, let's install an OS. And that's where my other frustration with this machine has come from. When it comes to TRS-DOS, you're going to need another floppy disk called the hard disk initialization utilities. And that's what you use to set up the hard drive, load the OS, and do all sorts of file system management through that. I've seen a photograph of the disk online about 2 years ago. I've never seen an actual disk image, so I can't produce the utilities disk needed to use the hard drive with TRS-DOS. Also, I'd like to point out, you can't have 3 operating systems on the same hard drive, just because at the time they didn't expect you to be juggling that many operating systems. Okay, so plan B, I have CP/M. Actually, I have 4 different copies of CP/M. I don't know if it's because of just how the discs were originally imaged, or if it's because of time, or if it's because the original discs were crap. The HD initialization utilities which are on these discs are all corrupt. Every other file on this is fine, except for the initialization tools. So, we can't use CP/M on this either, or at least through the hard drive. Actually, another strange thing that frustrates me, there's a level 2 basic emulator that's included with CP/M, and even though every other RAM test says the Model 2 is fine, it says that there's just not enough usable RAM. Maybe I just got something misconfigured or something like that. I'll keep poking with that. Okay, so, plan C. We have Xenix. Where is it? There it is. Okay, so I have all the cards that'll support Xenix. Everything should go as planned. Okay, insert the disk, boot it. Tells me to specify a hard drive, specify the hard drive, specify cylinders, heads, sectors, all that. The activity light in the drive goes on, tell it the format, and it doesn't work at all. So I managed to do a bit of research, and there's a lot of research you got to do for these machines because there isn't a whole lot of documentation available online. And whatever you can find is pretty sparse in terms of support. Okay, like I said, these cards came out of Model 16s and Model 6000s. There are Raman differences that need to be resolved first. Between the CPU board, the Motorola CPU board, the hard disk controller, and of course what the formatting utilities and the kernel expect on the boot floppy. So, we can't use the hard drive at all unless we figure out how to resolve that, if we even can. There's always the possibility I can't even run 68K Xenix on this machine because I have the wrong board set revision. Okay. Other than that, it looks like a nice machine. I mean, the disk drive's in a nice place. It's got your power and reset buttons, nice massive switches. Got a big screen, and the keyboard's detachable. Actually, it's about the size of the original Model 1. And I've used it for a serial terminal several times, and it's not that bad. You just can't run over 1200 baud, otherwise the character buffer overflows and it just doesn't want to work. And there's no VT100 compatibility. Other than that, even with a lot of software and all the hardware, I just don't like this machine. I actually just pulled it out to copy a disk for someone, but other than that, it's just been sitting in storage for the last year because I just have nothing I can really do with it. There's better things I can work with. The PDP-11, the Rainbow 100, any of my Macs, even the libretto that's sitting on the floor over there, even the Next that's sitting around the corner are funner than this machine. There's just so little software for me to play with. Anyways, that's all for now.